Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Fail Forward Friday. My
Friday.
name is Malesela Molepo,
And I am Roche Mamabolo.
and
And welcome to another edition. Kind of different this time.
yes,
So we are trying a different format. And we hope you like it, right? If it bombs out, it's a fail forward lesson, isn't
there we
it?
go. There we go.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
a reminder of how the show works. So, Doc comes up with a story. I come up with a story of a failure, and we compare notes. We discuss, and then we identify what they failed at, and if they failed forward or they just failed and went bust.
yeah. Often we try get stories of when they don't go past, but these guys can't help themselves but to go past. Two stories, two lessons. We compare notes. So based on last week as episode, I was talking about Mr. McMahon,
Yes.
Vince McMahon, and I couldn't finish my episode. So just the agenda of this session. So how is it gonna work? Am I finishing my episode and then?
Yes, so I think this week is going to be a bit different, Doc.
Mhm.
How we're going to do this is that you're going to finish your story, but
Mhm.
we're going to actually dig deeper into the personalities around these two stories that we spoke about last week.
Yeah,
Just a bit different.
yeah,
I was obviously speaking about Masayoshi Son,
yeah,
the founder of SoftBank,
yeah,
and Doc was speaking about Vince McMahon. If you like wrestling, all of you guys out there.
yeah,
Yeah. So this time around, we're gonna kind of like stick within the same two stories, except this time we go deeper into who these people are and maybe kind of like try understand what their upbringing, how their upbringing caused who they are
yeah,
today in that way.
yeah. So, I let me go first, right? So let me wrap up my story.
Yes.
Because last week I spoke about the ever colorful, enigmatic character of Vince McMahon, and we spoke about how his story is a series of blunders moving forward. He took over from his dad. So in fact, he took over from his dad and expanded the franchise, right? From a WWE, which was a remote association in a remote part of the US, and he grew it into a national franchise. And in the process, there's a series of blunders. And I think what I found interesting about his story is he keep on making mistakes along the way, but he doesn't stop. He doesn't say, "Oh, this is the end." He says, "Let's try this." And if this doesn't work, oh, okay, it didn't work. It bombed out. Oh, okay, we move on. Let's try something else. And if it works, great stuff. If it doesn't work, oh, okay, it didn't work. Let's move on. So for him, it's kind of like a series of blunders or experiments that he does, and some of the experiments worked out well, others bombed out. But it's those um, blunders that still keeps him in the game. So it's not like he's risking it all, and the whole association, bombs out. It's He's making a series of blunders, but he's still in the game. I mean, we spoke
Mhm.
about, and this made me laugh. We spoke about when they tried the movies, right? So,
Yes.
so you can check it out. You can check it out on YouTube, where there's this clip where Hulk Hogan holds this guy, and this guy is peeing on himself. It didn't work out, and it's like, okay, it didn't work out. Let's move on to something else. um and then there was the issue with the steroids scandal that broke out, and oh, okay, there's a reputation issue. Steroids, wrestling, bodybuilding, okay, shelf that one. And then it came at a time when he was trying to do the bodybuilders, WBC, World Bodybuilders something. And also, it was at the time where the steroids issue scandal broke out. Oh, okay, this didn't work out. Move on to something else. So it's a series of blunders that he makes, and he keeps on going. He doesn't give up, right? But I think, I mean, I want to bring it full steam on to sort of say he eventually manages to build WWE into this national franchise, which WWE, and there's another one called UFL, where those two combined, they fall under his company. Those two combined makes about 95% of the market share, right? 95%. I don't even think Google has got 95% market share,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
huge. When you go into YouTube, WWE is the 10th most popular channel on YouTube. 10th most, all over the world. It ranks at number 10, which is quite popular. Other wrestling federations closed doors. They went under. They closed doors, and they even went under with their wrestlers and everything. But WWE kept on going, right? And I found that to be quite interesting. And what he does, and I feel so stupid because the more I read about this, the more I see this as a soapy. I mean, I thought this is like a, professional sport. It's a soapy, it's a drama, it's a
Mm, mm.
series. They have all these characters, Hulk Hogan. Firstly, it was Andre the Giant, then Hulk Hogan, and then at some point came the Warrior, and then came Austin. I don't know if you remember. You remember? Is it Steve Austin? Steve Austin
Yes.
had this Austin 3:16,
Yes.
where it was taken from John 16 from the Bible. That was so funny. So he was like, "Yeah, you quoting John 16. I'm gonna beat you up. After this, you'll be quoting Austin 3:16." then the following day, the fans were with placards, Austin 3:16, Austin 3. It was so weird. But then they milk that. They milk that for a while. And then come after Austin come someone else. And then Mr. McMahon comes in. And when the ratings go down, he start thinking, oh, flip, the ratings are going down. What can we do? They invite Mike Tyson, right? Mike Tyson
Mm,
come
mm.
in and try to bolster the ratings. And when the ratings go down, he thinks, what can we do? Okay, I'm gonna do a wrestle match between the billionaires. So it's him and Trump versus Trump. Oh yeah, that's quite interesting. And then
Mm.
the ratings go up. But if you look at it from a long-term trajectory, you then get to see that it's one story, different actors coming in, and the goal
Mm.
is you're trying to always get the ratings and the viewership and the followership high than the others. So it's quite an interesting story. And I mean, what I found interesting with this story is in the same league where you have WWE, you then have other wrestling federations
Yes.
also competing at the same time. So I'm like, wow, this is quite interesting. So it's like you have a premier, you have multiple premierships, right?
Mm,
In the
mm,
same
mm.
country. So you'll have a professional soccer league, another professional soccer league, another and they're all competing for.
The
It's
same.
crazy.
It's what's this? I can't what's that insurance company? It's Hippo, basically.
Yes,
It all
yes.
belongs to one person.
It all belongs to one person. So I found that to be quite interesting that he managed to build this thing. Of course, um, you know, when you look at the business model, so when you look at the business model of professional wrestling, so the two things that comes out, and I think with any other sport, but what makes this quite interesting, where you have grown men with underwears and sweaty and fighting, is when you look at rugby, which is a great sport, The rules can be tricky if you don't know the sport. Soccer, the law of offside is changing all the time. It can also be tricky. Cricket also, it can
Yes.
be tricky. But fighting is fighting.
You
You
get
know,
knocked out. You go to sleep.
the rules are easier to understand. So
Yes.
two guys, they have to fight. Who the last man standing wins, right?
Yes.
But so that's the first part. There's a technical part to this where you have two guys fighting and wins, and then there's the business model part to this, which is how do we get people to pay to watch people fight, right?
Mm.
So
Mm.
that's where you make money,
Mm.
right? And so Vince has managed to get these two going, right? Let's get the characters to come fight. Let's keep the story interesting, but
Yes.
let's also get the people to come and watch, and they pay to come and
Yes.
watch. And he managed to build that, and he managed to get it right. Of course, until he got embroiled in this scandal, which I don't want to
Mm.
go deeper
Mm.
into, this sexual scandal. And I think there's also the issue of human trafficking in the process,
Mm.
right? But I think, in summary, what I pick up from Vince McMahon is, of course, there's a series of blunders in building a business. You're going to have a series of blunders. It can be a
Yes.
product blunder. It can be a product blunder where you get a fighter wrong, like they did with the Ultimate Warrior. He just could not succeed. Arc, for instance. So there's a product blunder in the process. There is a timing blunder, right? You come up with this product, it's the wrong timing. There's a scandal
Mm.
brewing in
Mm.
the process. So there's a timing blunder in the process. Um, there's a whole series of, I think, also leadership blunders, where there
Mm.
was a whole scandal about abuse of women, sexual abuse, which I think part of the predicament that he finds himself in is also because he turned a blind eye on, or allegedly turned a blind eye on, something that was happening behind the scene. And when
Sure.
he was being told, he did nothing about it, right? So there's a series of blunders: a product blunder, timing blunder, leadership blunder, but he keeps on moving, right?
Yes.
Which I found quite interesting. He keeps on moving. He doesn't build a monument on his blunders. He doesn't say, "Oh, I'm
Yes.
I'm I'm depressed." Oh, and then he parks there, right? He says, "Oh, okay, it didn't work out," and I love that attitude. He said, "Oh,
Yes.
okay, it didn't work out. We tried it. Let's move on."
He
Right?
pivoted into something else, and he
Into
pivoted
something
into
else.
something else.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that mindset I find, I always try, even though it's not easy, but I always try and adopt that mindset. If something bombs out, oh, okay, it didn't work out. Let's move on to something else.
Yes. Yes.
You are still in the game. You're
Yes.
still in the game. You don't want to make a mistake where it might take you out of the game. It means
Sure.
jail time. Because once there's jail time, then you're
Aish.
out of the game, right?
Mm.
Uh, which, we'll see how this case goes. But he's been making those mistakes
Was it
going
a current
forward.
case?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
there's a whole scandal, pretty much like the PDD scandal.
Yeah.
I haven't been following the case though, but there's a whole scandal about sexual abuse and human trafficking, which forced him to step down from WWE and let other people run it,
Mm.
and he can manage this. Yeah,
Well, look, I'll give him this. It's as if that is still happening because it's as if he's still there because WWE, he's built it in such a way where it does. I don't know how long it's been out,
yeah,
but even now I see it on TV. Everything is still like normal as
yeah,
normal can be. You
yeah,
know what I mean? So it means he did a good job. Now
yeah.
you mentioned something now, Doc, that I think um I don't know in South Africa if maybe I would say maybe in South Africa people are able to do that, like these startups. But
Mm.
he basically built a startup, right? Back in the 80s, he built a startup and he navigated the startup mentality of listen, I failed, let's move, let's pivot into this. Okay, let's do it. Oh, it's working, cool, let's do something else. We're doing it. He almost kind of like, as you're saying, he was failing as he was moving, stumbling as he was moving forward.
Yeah,
And that is actually very interesting because I'm saying now, I'm not sure if in this day and age, and maybe especially in South Africa, if we do see a lot of startups or a lot of companies and businesses that are able to get back up, have that tenacity, have that what's the word I'm looking for? What that the
So,
ability to hold on, I guess,
so,
is
so Jeff Bezos in this book, uh, invented one.
inventing one. Yeah.
Invented one. And I mean, I know you have read quite a lot on Jeff Bezos. He has this mantra, and I'm trying to finish what you're saying. He has this mantra. He calls it the day one
Yes.
mindset,
Yes.
right? The day one mindset, where you are as excited, you are as nervous, um, you are as anxious as the day one you started the startup,
Yes.
and you don't get comfortable. Even as you win, you don't get comfortable. You still have that mindset
Mm,
of
mm, mm,
of
mm, mm.
of starting up. I think in our recent conversation we spoke about continuing to have the bootstrap mindset. Even though the
Yes.
business is growing and it's making money, you want to retain that bootstrap mindset,
Yes. Yes.
that startup mindset,
You know,
so
you
that.
know, sorry,
Go on.
I just wanted before to excuse me. You remember us we spoke about this as you're saying.
Yeah.
It now reminds me of who I was thinking of back then as well. So there's a pastor called Craig Rochelle in America, and he says having a first generation mindset, meaning the first generation, the person that broke through, he had to be the one, or she had to be the one that breaks, that goes against the status quo, that does everything so that the legacy may follow.
Yeah.
And I think in that, I like what you're saying now, because even in even as he was building WWE, as he was falling, as he
Mm.
was having to restart again, he had that mentality of a first generation mentality,
Yeah.
or that day one mentality, to say, okay, we failed, but let's continue. I cannot lose, because this is the legacy that I'm fighting for.
Yeah.
And like I was saying now, the fact that it's still going on as if nothing ever happened just showcases the fact that I mean, he's built it in such a way that he doesn't need to be there for it actually to function. Now, I'm not sure in the future how it'll, maybe this is still the early days, but I'm not sure if in the future the cracks will start showing. But a really good company, you leave it and it functions, and it even grows because of the foundation you've given it. I'm guessing. I'm thinking
Yeah.
Apple, I'm thinking Google, I'm thinking all of these companies were on a good solid foundation, enough for you to hand it over to someone else and it just explodes, or it just grows even bigger. And
Yeah.
that's basically what I think he did in this.
Yeah. And I was having a conversation with someone. I can't remember if it was you, because I talked to ever so many people about this thing. So it talks about how most businesses start to fall by the third generation. Right?
Mm,
So the
yes,
first generation, to your point, the first generation builds this thing. They build it blood, sweat, and tears,
yes.
right? Passionate, putting in the long hours,
King
failing
David
forward.
mentality.
Yes, failing forward, having a day one mentality, continuing to have a startup mentality. So that's generation one. Generation two gets born into seeing the blood,
Yes,
sweat, and tears of
yes,
generation one. So when they take over having that appreciation, because they've seen what it takes to build this. The
yes.
cracks comes when generation three or four, because they haven't seen where this thing comes from. They haven't
Mm,
experienced the blood, sweat, and tears that generation one went through. And that they say that's where the crack starts to show. That's where a whole lot of most businesses by the third or fourth generation they start to falter. But to your point, Vince has managed to build. It's got solid systems and processes,
mm,
and he has been doing this for I don't know how many years now. I mean, WrestleMania is over. I think it's past WrestleMania 14. I can't remember where it is
mm,
now.
mm, mm.
You know, and so this thing is on autopilot. He's built solid systems, and this thing can run without him, and which is important because the goal of any startup is to build a business that can run without you. And the fact that it can run without you doesn't mean you can leave it altogether, but it means if it should happen, God forbid, that you're not there for whatever reason, it can run without you, which is quite interesting because I just came back from Europe. One of the things that I appreciated about the trip is seeing old buildings. I mean, the building that we were attending the TED event in, right, was the Vox Theater in Vienna. It's hundreds and something years old. But if you see it, it's as if it's new. I mean, it was repainted. Things work. The toilets work, the lights work, the seats. It's as if it was refurbished. But I think this thing was started in 1895 or something. It was constructed in 1895 or something. So it's and I think they have quite a lot of those buildings that were built in the 1800s, right? And those buildings have managed to stand the test of time because they've managed to look after them. Generation after generation has came in, they look new. You look at the ceiling, they look new. We in South Africa have those buildings. If you go to Bosman Station, for instance, and you look at the Bosman Station, it's as old. But the question is it looked after, right? Can we build these things and not only just build them, but look after them for generations after another generation? And I think if you have proper solid systems and processes, proper leadership, we're able to look after all these old buildings or all these businesses that they're able to transcend from one generation to the next.
So are we saying that, and maybe let's bring in the fact that all of this happens if you are able to fail forward? Because again, I can't think of any big organization right now that has never failed at something. Microsoft with the scandals of Bill Gates and all of these things before, when I remember that there's the one video where they show him where he's being hit with a pie or cake in the face, when he's going from court. I mean, even now, Google and what's happening with them. In fact, John D. Rockefeller and Standard Oil, how he maneuvered the oil scene back then with government as well, shutting them down. Like, I can't think of these companies that actually haven't, like with substance, that actually haven't failed forward.
That's the mantra. That's the whole idea that you're gonna. I mean, if you look at, for instance, Microsoft, right? You look at the blunders that Microsoft has made. I'm willing to bet in the list of those blunders, Vista is one of them, right?
Yes, no, Vista. Microsoft Vista was
one of them, right? Microsoft Vista. I think Microsoft tried phones as well.
Yes, we spoke about it with the Nokia. They even bought out Nokia, and that also failed.
It failed. I think I read somewhere they even tried a search engine, Internet Explorer of some sort.
Yes, Edge. Edge closed down a few years back. Like, even, I mean, Apple with the Apple car. That one, I can't wait to hear the whole story because whatever happened there, yes, we have some other podcasts out there, not podcasts, but these documentary YouTubers that have brought out what happened with Apple. But I actually want to hear the full story and what actually happened. How much money did they lose out on that? There's a lot of these companies that actually have, but
I think also
in fact,
Xbox
even James Dyson that we spoke about the other day, he failed with the car as well. And Dyson is still as strong as probably one of the best technology companies in the world. And yet they had a big blunder of that cost them almost $1 billion or $2 billion or something. So it's what you're saying now, Doc.
So here's my theory. My theory is, right? So I'm thinking about this as we are discussing. My theory is, when you start a business, right, you need to be willing, have the stamina, have
Mm,
the emotional
mm,
maturity
mm.
to say, I'm gonna try a lot of things. I'm gonna fail at a lot of things.
Mm,
And I'm not gonna take it personal, right?
mm,
Because you need to say that at the outset. To say
mm.
I'm gonna make a lot of mistakes, I'm gonna try a lot of things, I'm gonna make a lot of mistakes, I'm gonna move on. Because if we talk about Microsoft, we talk about Vince McMahon's WWE, and looking at the series of mistakes that they've been making, you then have to say, okay, in order for you to build a lasting legacy, right? A
Yes,
lasting legacy. You then need to be prepared to make a series of mistakes, but try a lot of things. Some of these things will work out, some of these things will bomb out. But that's okay, because the more you try them, the more it's as if you're prolonging the life
yes,
cycle of the business,
yes.
right?
And
Uh, mm,
sorry, just I'll let you finish. And the one thing that you're also doing is you building the experience, you building the foundation, you building because I mean you need weight, as they would say, for instance.
you're building the muscle. Yeah,
Yes,
you're building the muscle, the resilience of the business, right?
yes,
So the idea is you need to be able to say how many things am I going to fail at this year. I'm gonna try 5 things. Three of them will bomb out. Maybe one of them will be okay. One of them will be successful, and that's okay. We're gonna do
yes,
the same thing next year, the year after, the year after, and this series of blunders. Those that succeed, they keep you in business. Those that fall, you
yes.
archive them, throw them in the graveyard of all your mistakes, and then you move on. But you know that at least this year we've got one successful product, and it keeps you in the game. And
Yes,
you try 5 next year, 3 bombs out, 1 is okay, 1 succeeds. That 1 keeps you in the game for next year,
that's
and
true.
so on and so on and so on. So it's sort of like you need to be asking yourself, how many mistakes am I making? And of course, in those mistakes, I'll have some successes, but we're not saying make mistakes for the sake of making mistakes,
Yes, I was
right?
about to say, we're not
Yeah,
saying that go out and say, hey, I'm just going to try everything
yeah,
and
yeah.
whatever happens,
No,
happens, right?
yeah,
All eggs
but
onto the wall and some, if it doesn't break, it works.
it works, and those that work keep you in the game. Because
Mm.
what you don't want a Nokia situation where you keep it safe.
Yes,
You keep it safe for a very long time until it's no longer safe, and
yes.
then by the time you try to experiment and make mistakes, it's too late,
Yep,
right? So
yep.
you don't want that. So it's as if the startup mindset is start, try, experiment, learn from those, get smart at failing, fail better, fail forward, but emotionally manage
Mm, mm,
your
mm.
failure resilience.
You know, Doc,
Um,
what you're
mm,
saying now, Nan, I think of IBM.
yeah,
IBM, obviously, within the computer industry, used to be huge. But one thing I've always loved about IBM is that they R&D is continuing every single day. Like IBM, I mean, now they, as much as quantum computers are not a thing as yet, they are still putting, they're probably the leader in quantum computing, them or Google. But that kind of mentality of, listen, let's try something that is, let's pioneer an industry. That mindset will keep you going because there is always a North Star that you're aiming towards. If
mhm,
something is, if that part of your business is failing, there's at least something that's bringing energy to it. There's AI, there's quantum
mhm,
computing, there's fintech, there's you constantly are growing. I mean, I think of and we're saying this, we're seeing a lot of companies in South Africa, especially the telecommunications companies, how they went from being telecommunications and now they're almost focusing on technology. They're a technology company because I mean, technology is such a broad industry, and they understand that by staying where they are in only telecommunications, they will not be sustained because they're
mhm.
one disruption away from them failing.
Yep, yep. And until you don't disrupt yourself,
Yes.
someone else disrupts you. We- I'm gonna recommend a book, Who Moved My Cheese for You,
Yes. Yes.
because they're gonna move your cheese. They're
Yeah.
gonna move your cheese.
Yes.
So you want to be the one disrupting yourself,
Yes.
because if you successfully disrupt yourself, guess who's still in charge? You,
100%.
right?
And look
But
at
if
what's
someone
happening.
disrupts you,
Yeah.
and they win in disrupting you, you're out.
Look at
Right?
Apple. They got
Yeah,
disrupted with AI, and now they're scrambling all over the show
they're
to
chasing the
try get.
game.
You know what I
They're
mean?
chasing the game. Yeah,
Mm.
they're
Okay.
chasing the game.
That's
Yeah, that's my story.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
that's interesting, Doc.
yeah,
It's actually cool that we finished that off. Vince
yeah,
is Vince. I think we kind of like know where he comes from, as you said in the previous
yeah,
episode. He
yeah.
worked for his dad. He knew the game. He got his hands dirty early, and
Yeah.
that's why he was able to be who he is. And what WWE is now is that you see the story. I mean, you see Vince by the organization itself that he built, who he
Yeah,
really is in that way.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I
And
like.
I think at the moment the business, because he's handed over to his daughter or his son, can't
Mm,
remember, but the business is now third generation, I think, because
mm,
his
mm,
dad
mm,
started it,
mm,
he continued it, and I think
mm.
he's sending it over to his kids. So let's see how that
Is the
goes.
third gen. And look, I mean, I must say, you know why I think his kids will not fail is
Yeah,
that they also grew up in the business. They
yeah,
also it was Vince was a second generation, but had a first generation mindset
yeah, yeah,
because he put his blood and sweat in it.
yeah. He had a bigger vision. He saw this,
Yes.
being international, not just regional somewhere.
Mm, mm,
So yeah,
mm, mm.
true, very true.
Okay. Okay, nice. All right. So on to Masayoshi Son again.
Yes.
You
So
know,
the goal is we are trying to compare both of them, Vince's leadership or whatever entrepreneurship compared to Masayoshi Son, the
yes,
SoftBank guy from
yes.
Japan.
From Japan. I actually
Yeah.
didn't know this. In fact, when I was doing his study, I was studying through the notes that he actually is Korean.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he's actually Korean. His parents moved there. Okay. He was born in 1957, and his Korean immigrant parents moved to Japan when he was still quite young, and he eventually became a Japanese citizen. So it obviously brings in that mindset already of a migrant parents making sure that you succeed because there's no going back to Korea. And I'm guessing back in the days where the Korean Wars and everything was happening, that's probably when they fled to Japan. But he was bullied when he was young, but because he was Korean, you know, and obviously. In my head, I'm thinking you're bullied for being Korean, like, but it I guess it's the same everywhere, right? And I mean, the Japanese are quite hectic in that. If you're not part of the Japanese, whether you're mixed culture or you from another country, bullying is a real thing from that point of view. They almost don't consider you to be part of them at all if you're not from Japan or of 100% Japanese descent. So comes he was then born in Korea. They moved his parents moved to Japan, and he obviously was raised in Japan. Very bright student. His parents obviously made sure that he's focused. Again, migrant immigrant parents. We've heard it quite a lot of times. A lot of stories of how immigrant parents come in and they so hard on their kids because they can't afford to fail in that sense. He then went to I think when he was a teenager, moved to the US. He studied. He was in high school in California, and then eventually he was enrolled in what's this in Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley. That's when things. He Masayoshi Son himself became who he is. This guy's actually very bright, dog. Yes, I must say, like as I was reading this, he studied. What did he study? So he didn't study any tech at first, right? He went into tech after he had always been interested in tech, but he did not study he didn't study tech. So it says so he went to California, University of California, Berkeley, where he majored in economics. While at Berkeley, Son immersed himself in technology, in the technology world, and it was there that he developed a deep interest and in microchips. And get this, at the age of 19, Son invented an early version of a multi-lingual translator, which he sold to Sharp Corporation for $1 million at
Wow.
19.
Wow.
Um, like I can only imagine, again, maybe this talks to, again, the immigrant mentality, right? This is an immigrant that went with his parents, that his parents went into Japan and had that immigrant mentality, and that's all he knew. When he went to America, I'm sure he still had that immigrant mentality to say, listen, I have to achieve or else I fail, and I can't afford to fail. And what they say, we know what they say around how, or there's theories that people have written of how, I think it was also they've interviewed a few CEOs in America, and how they are all foreign. And I mean, we can say whatever we want, maybe about WeWork, but the very CEO, well, the founder of WeWork, Adam Newman, was a foreigner, and I guess had the mentality as well. And that's where we see what's happening with him. We see a lot of startups at the moment in the US as well, where people are immigrants, but yeah, they're immigrants in the US, and they have to make it. Their backs are against the wall. They need to get to a place where they grow and succeed. I mean, Google
So
CEO as well.
yeah, yeah. Sundar
Patel,
Pichai.
yeah,
Yeah,
Pichai, yes, and
Pichai.
Microsoft CEO as well.
Satya Nadella. Yes.
Yes, so
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk as well,
Yeah.
actually. You know, and it's actually quite interesting. And I guess as resident of a country, if you're a citizen of that very country, not to say that you can't succeed,
But but
but
but I'm more on that. I'm more interested to. I haven't done some work on it, but it's quite interesting that most of them are from India,
yes,
right? Sundar
yes,
Pichai, Satya Nadella, CEO of IBM.
yes, IBM, even the lady,
Yeah,
what's her
Indra
name?
Nooyi from
Yes,
PepsiCo.
yes,
It's Starbucks, CEO of Starbucks, also from there. It's yeah, interesting.
very interesting, doc.
Very
And I
interesting.
mean, again, I guess comfort is a real thing when it comes to you being in a country, right?
So, so there's a whole theory about when people complain that South Africans are lazy, they don't want to work, what. Uh, and someone then says, but hold on, if you go to the UK, for instance, some of the most hardworking people in the UK are South Africans, right? So
Mm.
to your point, it's not that they're lazy, it's an expert thing that
Yes.
when they come here, or when people come here, it's not their home, they don't have the advantage. If it bombs out, whatever that they're trying here, if it bombs out, it's not like they can just relax and they can
Mm,
go they can go to their mama's house, and the mom will look after them.
mm,
Here,
mm,
if you
mm.
come from outside, you fail, you risk having to go back to
Yes.
where you were running away from. So you have to make it work. So to your point, it's an expert thing, to a
Yes.
large extent. We see it with soccer players. A lot of the soccer players that comes from outside of South Africa, they come into South Africa to play soccer here. Most of them don't get involved in a whole lot of scandals.
True.
They are more
True.
disciplined because they understand, if I don't make this work, I have to go back home. So
Yeah.
yeah, to your point, yes.
So I mean, just maybe to touch on that one more thing on that is, I think of how um we talk about, obviously, the immigrants going into a different country and doing. I've actually, oh, that's what I actually have quite a few friends, doc, from DRC, from Zimbabwe, from uh, that are brilliant. Like, when I say brilliant, these guys are really good. And in fact, I think within a country, you can actually have that kind of mentality as well, I guess, but it goes in a format of a person that actually comes from a poor background, where the expert mentality is that I can't go back to the village. I need to actually be more. It's those that are in a comfort zone of, oh, I went to a Model C school, or I studied at a good university, I work for a good job, that they become professionals.
Yeah.
But they don't have the tenacity to push at all. I mean, push at whatever it takes. Yes, some, obviously a lot of them do, but they don't have that mentality that someone that is an expert, as you say, comes in with, and that actually, it's almost as if it's Red Bull to their veins kind of thing. It gives them that much more tenacity to say, you know what, I'm willing to do this. I have a friend of mine, actually. He's actually he has a PhD in data science, and this man was one of the youngest PhD, lecturers at Stellenbosch, right, from the DRC. And dog, when I say this guy is brilliant, he finished his PhD in his 20s. He's still in his 20s, I think at 29 or something, if I'm not mistaken. He went on to be a lecturer at Stellenbosch, right? And he's now the head of data and AI at one of the banks in South Africa, one of the big banks in South Africa. And I'm like, and he's what, a year older than me. It's brilliant. He's not yet to play because he knows what he came to do in South Africa, and yet some of us that are sitting on a day-to-day with the comfort of knowing that, you know what, they can't say go home. You know what I mean? We just like, it's fine, whatever happens happens. You know what I mean?
If it bombs out, you can go to Limpopo, man.
You know what I'm saying, dog? There's a farm somewhere that my grandmother has with some cows anyway.
You don't have to cross the border.
You see, so it's actually interesting. But let me carry on. So he started SoftBank in 1980, and then in 1981, and then the name SoftBank comes from the word software bank, basically. And the reason is that he envisioned this company as a bank of software, like with many softwares under one umbrella. And that's how he came up with SoftBank. He then he expanded into other regions all over the world. In fact, after that's when he obviously built he was building software. He then went from building software and came up with started doing investments as well. In the 90s, he invested in Yahoo. One of the bigger guys was Yahoo, in Alibaba. Alibaba is actually what he was known for, because he invested $20 million back then in the in Alibaba. And he from get-go, and I guess maybe again it speaks to the expert mentality to say that this he went into this whole thing with Alibaba and with Yahoo, and he was willing to take that risk. I mean, he put so much money into Alibaba, obviously, 20 million back then in the 90s, right? And in fact, Alibaba was the reason he actually survived the dot-com bust, because he had all his eggs in a few baskets. And lucky for him, that Alibaba one stuck and made him billions. What was 20 million now made him billions, right? I think of how Naspers invested in Tencent as well. Similar thing. And now that one thing made Naspers huge amount of cash. Billions and billions, hundreds of billions, in fact, of dollars, right? Because I think they owned 32% at one stage in Naspers. But yeah, that's the kind of like, he's always been a visionary in that. And I think maybe as we spoke about it last week, flying too close to the sun became a bit of a thing, because he saw, oh, okay, I can do this, right? And obviously over the track record showed. It's when he went to when he did the vision fund where he got the 100 billion, that things then kind of like started showing the cracks. To say, I'm sure all these years he has been investing and things have been well, but then the cracks came in maybe when he was a bit too confident in what he could do, what he's almost untouchable mentality, and it's very dangerous. But obviously, being very dangerous at that level of wealth as well, for him, it's not a thing because already I think he was worth. I mean, he's worth. I want to say 20 billion. Yeah, he's worth like 20 some. Yeah, 20 billion as of 2024. He's worth 20 billion dollars. Now, obviously, again, the sovereign wealth fund from Saudi was the biggest backer on that. I can imagine when it's just a risk and the people are trusting in you, and that risk just went south in that way. But yeah, I mean, he is a what's the word? It's not bubbly, but he's got a personality of let's just do it. Nike, let's do it. And we spoke about it last week as well. And I mean, one of the other buys, I think the only one of the I think one of the two that came out of the sovereign wealth that vision fund that at least did fairly well. I guess it's part of what we were talking about failing forward, right? This is him actually failing forward. Yes, it might be at a big scale of billions, but he actually is still failing forward because Slack, that was bought by Salesforce, as I said last week, was still a good investment because they sold for like $36 billion or something. And then ByteDance as well, TikTok. They are a good, I guess they are fairly good. Yes, their business model is not like YouTube and whatever short videos, but an ad spend is not as big on there as on YouTube and the Instagrams of the world. But for what they're doing, at least they're quite a big player, and that's one of the other companies that at least are doing well within the fund. The other ones, WeWork, we've spoken about. Uber, we've spoken about not so well. The other one we spoke about last week was that competitor that we've actually never heard of from that is Airbnb's competitor that actually, like I said, no one actually heard of. Or let us know, guys, if you've heard of this company. What is it? Olo? Olo, something like that. Yeah, I mean, those are the ones that maybe we don't talk of. It's Oyo, yes, Oyo.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
those are the companies that we don't talk of, or that we talk of that have failed. But actually, this guy has done fairly well in his fund thus far, and he's shown his track record has shown. And by him failing forward, you're not always gonna hit the jackpot, but when you do it big.
Yeah, yeah. It's quite interesting because I'm sort of trying to compare and contrast Vince. I'm listening to what you're saying about Masayoshi Son and Vince McMahon, and I mean both of them are obviously in different sectors. One is in entertainment. I used to think he's in sports. Okay. So no, he's not in sports. He's in entertainment, and then another one is in technology, right?
Mhm.
Um, Vince. I mean, if you sort of have been following, Vince is more autocratic, hands-on. Like
Yes,
he's there, he announces the fights, he makes the decision. So he's running this thing 100% full on as a full-time job. So he's the vision bearer. He decides where the ship is going, and every day you can safely say on a daily basis he's running this.
yes,
Masayoshi Son, he's running an investment company, but he's not hands-on in terms of running the
yeah, the business itself.
the businesses that he's invested in.
Yes,
So he would say, I'm giving X amount to WeWork, and Adam Newman, you run WeWork.
yes,
And occasionally, I mean, he would say to Adam Newman, you're not dreaming big enough.
yes,
Dream big type of a thing. So Masayoshi Son is more is delegative, so to speak. He
yes,
delegates, whereas
yes,
Vince is every day. I am there. I am pushing this thing, but also typical Americans or American culture or American business culture. the business personality takes after the personality of the owner,
True.
right?
That's actually true.
So,
Yes.
so WWE takes of the personality of a larger than life Vince McMahon.
Mm,
It's a hero worship. If this thing succeeds, I raise my hand. I am the guy. And
mm.
if you look at most of this of American businesses, whether it's
Facebook.
Amazon,
Mm,
Facebook,
mm,
Tesla,
mm,
Apple, they take the personality of the owner. We get to
mm.
know the owner and then get to know the businesses that they are building. But
That's
the
true.
two are always the same. It's impossible to know of a great business and not know of the owner.
You know,
Americans are very big on personal branding,
yes,
you
yes.
know?
You're right by that because I think of other companies all over the world that are not American, and I can't
Yeah,
actually think that people know the CEO. Yes, another, let's say Spotify. Spotify, people that know him, but
yeah,
he's not loud.
no,
He's in the cracks. No one knew who WhatsApp's owners were.
yeah,
No one, obviously now it's Facebook, but
yeah.
no one knew who who started IKEA, for instance. One of the most
Yes,
successful men.
in
Um,
Trevor
uh,
Cartwright. Yeah.
you know what I mean? No
Mm.
one. There's a lot of companies I can even Stripe. This fintech company called Stripe. Many
Yeah.
don't know who the founders are because they're very reserved. They're very and I can maybe it is an American thing because I guess Americans are also the biggest hype men, right? They their own hype men.
Yeah.
So much so that they attach it. You automatically attach that that brand to an owner because the owner is made so famous because of that brand.
Yeah.
So it's actually
Yeah.
quite
Eh,
interesting.
Yeah, it's a culture thing. It's an American culture thing. It's very individualistic. I mean,
Mm,
let's compare the two. I mean, Masayoshi Son, yes, he went to the US, he studied there, but he's from the East,
yes.
right? He's from the East, South Korea, Japan, and their culture there is quite different.
Yeah,
Their leadership style, the culture is quite
yes.
different then.
Perspective
I'll
is
give you an
very
example.
structured.
Yeah, yeah, it's structured, it's family business
Yes.
orientated. Um, we spoke about the other episode. We spoke about how the China guy uh,
Oh yes. Yes.
Ant Group,
Yeah, the end
uh,
group one. Yeah.
yeah, how he tried to be bigger than the establishment, and
Yes.
that establishment brought him down. Right.
Yes.
So, so in the East, the
Jack Ma.
leadership side yes, Jack Ma. In the East, the leadership side is very different. It's family, it's team, it's group
Mm,
orientated.
mm,
Um, and we work as a group. Let me give you an example, and I think we spoke about this. And forgive me if we've spoken about this, right? About the BP oil spillage in the Gulf of
mm,
Mexico, right?
mm.
The BP spillage in the Gulf of Mexico happened a while back when Obama was still president. I think it
Yes.
was in his
Oh
first term.
nine or something.
Yeah, yeah. And then what happens is um, the media is quite hard on the CEO of BP. He was playing golf somewhere when this spillage was happening. Uh, and it's quite interesting because we call it a BP oil spillage, but BP actually outsourced this to another company to do the digging of the oil in the Gulf. But the media expects the CEO of BP to be on the ground,
Mm,
right?
mm, mm, mm.
Obama had to take time out of his schedule to go to the
The
Gulf of
Gulf.
Mexico
Mm,
and be there physically present there, right? Because that's how the media expects. They expect the ringleader to be on the ground and leading the forces from from ahead,
mm.
from the front. So a few years later, 2 years later, a year, 2 years later, after the Gulf of Mexico, then there was the whole Toyota braking system failure. right?
mm, mm,
Where a guy, uh, I can't remember which model it was, the brakes were failing,
mm,
and as a result, there were a whole lot of accidents that took place. One guy was even found guilty of culpable homicide because he was involved in an accident and people died in that accident. He
mm.
was driving a Toyota. People died in an
Was it not
accident.
the ref 4 issue?
No. I can't remember which model. It
Okay.
probably is the RAV4. People died in that accident, and then he was found guilty and he went to jail. But later on, it was actually discovered that actually it is not his fault because there were the brakes in that model were faulty,
Mm,
right? And then of course he was acquitted, and taken out of jail. And then Toyota had to recall, right, to do a
mm,
whole recall of the cars because of the braking system failure. Now, during this scandal, right, the CEO of Toyota is not there to be seen, nowhere to be seen. The American media is on the Toyota case. Why is the CEO? Why hasn't he done a press briefing? Blah, 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 blah. Now, remember, Toyota is a Japanese company.
yes.
Their culture is different,
Mm,
right? And and the CEO of Toyota says, no, but we do things differently here. I
mm,
don't have to do a press briefing. There's someone in comms and communications
mm,
department whose job is to do that,
mm,
right? We work as a team here and people have got responsibilities. And there's someone who's responsible for that and they need to do that. I can't do that, right? And it shows the difference in the leadership styles of the West and the East,
mm,
right? One of my favorite TED speakers uh, talks about how if we are going to measure the success of China using American yardsticks or American benchmark, we are going to get China wrong. He says,
mm.
don't measure China or the success of China using the benchmark set by America because China is not interested in being like
That's
America.
true. That's
They
true.
don't measure their success according to American standards. They don't want
Yes.
to be like America. And
And
for
I
as
must
long as
say,
you come again,
now, and I must say, America does a good job to almost make other people want to be or want to have their standards. It's actually
yeah,
ridiculous. But anyway,
it's called the Americanization culture, right?
yes.
So it's quite interesting when I look at Masayoshi Son and his leadership style. He's not a loud person, right?
Mm-mm.
Of course, yeah, you can argue it's a different space. You can't compare the two because one is in entertainment, the other one is in tech. But Masayoshi Son is more of a delegative leader. He delegates, he gives you the money, he says go, right?
Mm,
Vince McMahon is there, full on, hyped, personal branding hyped, a guy who likes taking risks, you know, and learning from that. Machoshi-san, tech-driven, visionary investments, and his portfolio is, you can say it's in the tech space, but even in the tech space, it's diversified. There's telecoms, there's fintech, there's all manner of things.
yes.
Machoshi-san is more calculative. I would say Machoshi-san is more calculative than Vince. Machoshi-san will never say, oh, you want to do movies? Let's book ourselves into a hotel for 3 days and write a movie script. He'll never say that, right?
Mm, 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 mm,
Um,
mm, mm.
so I find, that there are key differences. McMahon Entertainment and Sports, Manchester Tech.
Yes.
Um, Both they have high risk appetite. Both of them, they're not afraid to take risks and fail.
Mm,
Both of them are very visionary
yes.
in terms of they know what they want to build. They know what they're looking for. They have a high tolerance for risk, but their leadership side is different. Their
Sure.
approach to issues are different. So that's based on
Okay.
what you're
I
saying,
like
and
that.
yeah,
I like that, Doc. Mm.
yeah.
Now it will be interesting how everything unfolds with Vince, obviously, and again in the future, seeing if his daughter or son still continues the legacy like he has.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's yeah, that's interesting, Doc. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Is that the pod?
It is the pod, Doc.
Awesome.
Thanks for availing yourself after your long
Yeah.
journey into Europe.
Yeah, man.
I think yeah, let's meet again next week, everyone. Thank you for
Same
joining us
time.
on Fail Forward Friday. And
Yeah.
yes, same time next week, Friday,
On my
12:30.
biggest
Oh,
blunders platform. Yeah, and subscribe, like, comment.
yes.
And we want to hear your comments, we want to hear your stories. Let us know if there's any story you want us to research. And sometimes, who knows, we might even invite you to come and share the story, you know?
Yes, yes. That'll
Why
be
not?
interesting. Why
Yeah,
not?
yeah.
Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Awesome. Great stuff.
Bye.